Well, Donald Trump endured the worst day of his life as a criminal defendant today. It was Donald Trump's first time in a courtroom as a criminal defendant for anything other than his arraignments. Donald Trump was not allowed to speak, and we can only imagine the intensity of his agony when he looked up at the judge's bench to see that his future as a criminal defendant was going to be decided by three women: a black woman, an Asian woman, and a white woman 2 years older than Donald Trump. Donald Trump has expressed himself clearly as a racist and misogynist over the course of his public life, and so we can be close to certain at how he must have been seething.
And for those, if you have people who are saying, no, he's not a racist, he's not a misogynist, go do the research. Go look and see what he said about women, about black people, certainly about Hispanic people in the past.
At a 3-judge panel of those women, a 3-judge panel that did not include a single right-wing white man appointed by Donald Trump. Donald Trump's best hope on that bench today was 79-year-old Karen Henderson, who was appointed a federal district court judge by President Ronald Reagan and then elevated to the Circuit Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C. by President George H.W. Bush 34 years ago. Judge Henderson had this reaction to Donald Trump's lawyers' claim that Donald Trump cannot now be prosecuted for any crimes that he committed while President of the United States.
I think it's paradoxical to say that his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed allows him to violate criminal laws.
And that was not the worst of what Donald Trump had to hear from the 3-judge panel today. Judge Michelle Childs was first appointed as a federal district judge in South Carolina by President Obama. President Biden elevated her to the Washington, D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. Congressman James Clyburn of South Carolina urged President Biden to appoint Judge Michelle Childs to the United States Supreme Court, but she came in second in the Biden selection process for the now Supreme Court seat occupied by Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Donald Trump's lawyer, John Sauer, was the first to speak in the proceeding, as is customary in an appeal, and Judge Childs interrupted him almost immediately to point out that there is nothing in the Constitution that supports the Trump argument that a president can only be prosecuted after being impeached by the House of Representatives and convicted in a trial in the Senate.
You're not giving me anything that says explicitly in the references that you cite.
One is the plain language of the impeachment judgment clause, which says that only the party convicted shall be subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law.
But so that's right there, take the negative inference, correct?
That's the plain language supports that. We've argued from the very beginning that it is the natural and ordinary meaning of the impeachment judgment clause.
No one else in the courtroom agreed with that today.
So what he's basically saying is you need to be impeached and convicted in the Senate before you can be prosecuted in a court of law. And he's going to elaborate upon this, and I'm going to explain to you why he is absolutely wrong, and it is a horrendous precedent to set.
Judge Florence Pan made it clear that she believes it all comes down to the brand new interpretation of the impeachment clause of the Constitution offered by Donald Trump's lawyer.
Since President Trump concedes that a president can be criminally prosecuted under some circumstances, he says that that is true only if he is first impeached and convicted by Congress. Do you agree that this appeal largely boils down to whether he's correct in his interpretation of the impeachment judgment clause? That is, if he's correct that the impeachment judgment clause includes this impeachment first rule, then he wins. And if he's wrong, if we think the impeachment judgment clause does not contain an impeachment first rule, then he loses.
Judge Pan was looking down at a man in her courtroom today for 1 hour and 15 minutes who has said her blood is poison. Donald Trump recently said that immigrants poisoned the blood of this country. Florence Pan's parents came to the United States from Taiwan. They lived in the same city as Donald Trump when Florence Pan was born in New York City. She graduated summa cum laude from the same college Donald Trump graduated from, the University of Pennsylvania. She was immediately hired by Goldman Sachs, the leading investment bank in the world, but after a couple of years, she decided that spending your life chasing money like Donald Trump was no way to live. And so she went to Stanford Law School, then served as a law clerk for a federal judge in the Southern District of New York who was appointed by Republican President Ronald Reagan. She then worked in the Justice Department, the Department of the Treasury. President Biden chose Florence Pan to occupy the seat in the Washington, D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals that was vacated by Ketanji Brown Jackson when she moved up to the Supreme Court. Donald Trump believes that Florence Pan's children are carrying the poisoned blood of immigrants. He believes that Florence Pan and her children have infected the United States, an infection that needs to be stopped by him. Because of the sterling professionalism exhibited by all of the judges on the panel today, there is no reason to believe that Donald Trump's phrase, poisoned blood, was on Judge Pan's mind for a second when she pierced the Trump argument in a way that will make it impossible for any judge, including the Trump-appointed judges on the Supreme Court, to rule that the President of the United States has complete immunity from any crimes committed while president, unless that president is convicted in a Senate impeachment trial for those crimes.
Could a president order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? That's an official act in order to SEAL Team 6?
He would have to be and would speedily be, impeached and convicted before the criminal prosecution.
The Trump attorney is trying to say that to save face because he's trying to play along with this cockamamie theory that you have to be impeached and convicted in the House and Senate before you can be prosecuted, which I find fun. The one thing I find the funniest about this whole thing with them, with their argument is that it runs completely counter to what the Republicans were saying back in 2021 after January 6th when the Democrats wanted to impeach and convict Trump back then in the House and Senate. The Republican senators were saying, oh, he's out of office anyway. We don't need to convict him. We don't need to impeach him because the courts will handle it. And now, so that was the only, I mean, granted, here's the thing about impeachment and conviction within Congress. And this is why I think there's only been a handful of actual convictions and never for a president. There have been 3 presidents that have been impeached, but none of them have been convicted. And here's why. Even someone like, and it's ironic that the one that was probably most likely to get impeached only got away with it because the final Congress member or the final senator who decided to vote against against conviction said that the reasoning for why he voted against it was because it would create too much of a discrepancy between Congress and the presidency. It would give Congress too much power. And it's ironic that now Trump is trying to use that to his advantage. Because here's the other thing about it too. Especially nowadays, the likelihood of getting a conviction in the Senate is pretty much zero. Because it's not a simple majority. It's like a filibuster. You need 60%. You need 60 senators to vote in favor of conviction to get a conviction. And especially with the polarization and the separation in the U.S. between red and blue. Let me see. Actually, I'm curious about this. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so, currently there are 49 Republicans and 48 Democrats with 3 independents. So even if you had all 3 independents vote with the Democrats, you would still not have enough you would need a few Republicans to jump ship. Which the likelihood of that happening in today's polarized environment is basically zero. So this argument that, you need to be convicted in the Senate before you can stand trial is absolutely ridiculous and wrong. Because it's never going to happen. Even under let's just play under their let's just play under Judge Pan's question. I can guarantee you that even if and the funny thing about here's the thing. Here's the funny thing about it. And Republicans do not want to admit this. But if someone if Joe Biden did something that was completely unconstitutional, if a Democrat, let's say if Joe Biden did what Judge Pan is theorizing about, if he had Donald Trump assassinated, and you could prove it without a shadow of a doubt, the Democrats would flip on him so fast because they know that that's what is right. Whereas the Republicans, if Trump were to do that, the Republicans would come up with these BS excuses for why he was able to do that or why he was right to do that. So the concept that he would be speedily impeached and convicted is a load of crap. And I wish Judge Pan had called him out on it. I guess she does in her own judgy way, where she simply asks the question if he wasn't, which he wouldn't be. Let's be honest. Let's be real here. That would not happen. Point blank.
But if you weren't, there would be no criminal prosecution, no criminal liability for that?
Chief Justice's opinion in Marbury against Madison and our constitutional tradition and the plain language of the impeachment judgment clause all clearly presuppose that what the founders were concerned about was not.
I asked you a yes or no question. Could a president?
What I don't understand about what Trump's attorney was talking about is, what does Marbury versus Madison have to do with it? Marbury versus Madison was not anything to do with impeachments or Congress. It had to do with the Supreme Court and courts. I don't understand where this argument is coming from, because Marbury versus Madison had nothing to do with what they're talking about here.
Who ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival who was not impeached, would he be subject to criminal prosecution?
If he were impeached and convicted first. And
So your answer is no.
My answer is qualified yes.
What exactly does that even mean? A qualified yes. It means that what it means is that the Trump lawyer realized he got outplayed. He got outflanked. And he was trying to figure out he was trying to come up with some sort of legal loophole to get out of it. He knew he was screwed right there. And so he was just thinking, oh, crap, what do I say here that can get me out of this? That's all it was. That's all it was. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Lawrence says a few more things here, but not, nothing too crazy. But that's the Trump trial issues right now. And I mean, just looking at it, he should be screwed. I mean, in this one, in the appeals court, I think he is. The big question, both when it comes to both when it comes to the Colorado case and when it comes to the immunity case, the big question is going to be, is the Supreme Court going to do the right thing, or are they going to kowtow to the party and to Trump? Like I said, I think they'll actually do the right thing, but not for the right reasons. I think they'll do it for self-preservation. Because I think they'll realize that if you let Trump get away with this, then he's basically given carte blanche to do whatever he wants. And one thing a dictator does not need is a judiciary that has, at least to an extent, more power than he does when it comes to constitutionality and being able to do things. I mean, granted, Trump has said he's going to destroy the Constitution anyway, so that would preclude that he would destroy the Supreme Court as well. I mean, I know Trump wants to become judge, jury, and executioner, so, yeah. The only hope that we have is that, at least in my opinion, because I don't trust the Supreme Court enough to actually do the right thing for the right reasons at this point, or actually abide by the Constitution. So the only way that they do the right thing is through self-interest.